Welcome back, everyone, to the Cancel for Maintenance podcast. If this is your first time joining us, we're a show that takes a behind-the-scenes look into the gritty, non-glamorous life of aircraft maintenance. We share some laughs, impart some wisdom, all in hopes of giving you that split seconds relief in your day that will hopefully prevent a mishap. I am your co-host 6.
I'm MVP.
And our third host, Mr. Shoreline, is in the back, silently monitoring our audio, making sure our faces stay fit for radio. So today we have Return of the Return of Return. It's like an ongoing sequel of guest appearances. Mr. Demo from Finding Demo Surf Fishing. Hey, hello, sir.
Yeah, you guys I don't know how it is. I keep getting lucky to come back. I'm like, I keep waiting for one of the listeners to be like, oh my God, shut him up. He's an idiot.
I mean, I think at this point, if they still listen to us, they're kind of buying into our BS, you know?
The good news is,
if they're still with us, they're on board.
Right. I mean, the good news is, hey, when I'm on, don't worry, we're not talking fishing and we're not talking RV stuff. I've grown up. You guys are going to be so proud of me. I went and got my A&P.
Yay!
All right. Look at you.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Do you regret it?
No, I mean, now looking back, I'm like, damn, that sucked. Oh my God, that was awful. I'm glad I did it. Definitely glad.
So for all our listeners out there, I mean, Mr. Demo here, or Brian, he jokes around that all he did talk about was fish and RVs, but in a previous life, he was an aircraft mechanic himself. He just now officially has an A&P certificate to work on pretty much every plane imaginable compared to the ones that him and I have worked on exclusively in our previous life. So, yeah. But going on with that, since you've recently taken the test, you have enlightened us before the episode started about just how different a lot of the exams are. And, you know, there's been some people who've had interest in wanting to be aircraft mechanics or just get into aviation in general. And a lot of the advice I've been seeing fly around is like the cookie cutter advice, you know, like the stuff you would see on Reddit or like some other stuff that's very dated. Let's call it that. Like they're very dated. And so for today's episode, we'd like to actually pick Brian's brain here about what the A&P exams are like. And then for all of you out there who's in the process of getting it or has kind of been on the fence about starting, like here's some of the stuff that you're going to be stepping into as far as like the initial hurdles of getting your A&P cert.
Yeah, what to expect. And for some background, when I went and got my A&P, it was prepware courses. So it was computer exams, you know, for your written tests. And it was just taking practice exams for general airframe and power plant over and over and over and over, and just memorization. And then you went and took the test, and that was it. So sounds like it's a little bit more difficult now, but Demo will get into it here and let us know.
Yes, sir. So again, only for those partially. Who unfortunately it's like repressed memories, man. So for those who have yet to be aircraft mechanics, right? So in order for you to qualify to get your A&P certificate or Airframes and Powerplants certificates to be mechanics, there's a whole slew of requirements like age, basic medical stuff. You have to either have completed so many hours on the job saying that you know what the hell you're doing, or go to a school that teaches you how to do basic aircraft mechanic stuff. And then option 3, I believe, is like some kind of apprenticeship where it's like a mix mash of the other two. Either way, once you've built up those hours or have had that course done by a school, your next hurdle in life would be taking a grand total of 9 extra tests. So you would have 3 written tests for an airframe test, a general aviation exam, and a power plants or air quotes engines exam. And then those are written, and you'll have those same 3 categories as a practical exam and those same 3 categories as a oral presentation exam. I don't know, call me weird, man. Maybe I'm just corrupted with too much sexual stuff from the military that when I hear oral, that the first thing I think of is not when you have to present something. It's totally opposite. Sorry, children. So, but again, grand total of 9. So those are you have to pass all 9 in order for you to be a certified airframes and power plants technician, or AMT for the people here in the US. So as we stated earlier, Brian here, he's recently got his. He passed all 9. And and there's a lot of repressed memories, as he's mentioned already. So I guess the first one I would like to ask specifically is, which one did you decide or how did you go about tackling leading up to the tests?
Taking the test actually kind of came on a dare.
Has it?
Actually, yeah. So where I'm currently working, one of the guys was like, "Don't you have your AMP?" And I'm all, "No, I'm never going to need that, man." He's like, "Bet you won't do it." I was like, "Oh, you want to play this game? I got some time off. I got some money. All right, let's do this." And in reality, he wanted me to come work for him in his shop, which unfortunately hasn't happened yet. There's the way of the game. So he said it. So what I started doing right after that, I contacted my local FSDO in Birmingham, and the process was great. I couldn't believe it. I got real lucky with what we did in the military. I used the U.S. map. So through the Department of Labor, you can use the military apprenticeship program. And luckily with our MOS, we were fortunate. We could play in the Airframe and Powerplant category, which was great. I didn't realize we got that lucky, but I got it done. So military people, if you're listening to this, seriously look up the U.S. map for the Department of Labor. It's an easy, super simple way to document your hours, and it is accepted by the FSDOs for your time in service. So you don't have to bust out your old map maps or any of your proof stuff like that. So, yeah, I contacted the FSDO and he's like, "Yeah, send me your paperwork. By the way, we're doing everything digitally. You don't have to come to Birmingham." And I was like, "Oh, cool. That's 8 hours of my life I get back from not having to drive." I sent him my stuff and I had it back from him like an hour and a half later. Like, "Yeah, hey, you're good to go, dude. Go take your test." Oh, okay. How? Like the panic set in because it was like, "Oh crap, I just got authorized. Oh no, somebody believes in me. I don't know what to do." So I wasn't
trained for this.
I needed some resistance, man. Like, tell me I suck. Spit on me, something, degrade me a little bit.
Just scam me a little bit. Tell me I need to make up hours or something. Like it's been too long.
Hey, you're worthless. Oh, I am. No, you're gonna sign off. Okay, thank you. Treat me like the mechanic I am. And there's the darkness from our past right there.
That's right.
So yeah, he gave me that. And then there's one guy that was in my current shop at the time. He had his AMP. He went to Baker and highly recommended Baker. Yeah, I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great, dude. I just don't want to go to Tennessee. I don't want to take that much time off. I don't want to do it." So I went my way. I bought the ASA pubs. I bought them off Amazon and I got sent the study guides. So I just sat down and I just started highlighting and memorizing, because that's what he told me. He's like, "Do not get into this. Don't dig into the weeds." And I'm like, man, something about this just doesn't smell right. So started listening to, I think it's Northwest or Northeast Aviation Pro on YouTube. And he did oral study guides. Same way. So then now I was taking care of the visual learning, and now I'm getting the audio learning. I'm like, all right, we're going to double pound this. Then throw in the kinesthetic, walking around, asking questions. And then I found another YouTube channel, which unfortunately I don't have the name up here, which I kind of feel bad about. He did me a solid. He's an instructor for a school. And he's like, "Hey, before you guys start coming to take this test, you might want to consider that the FAA has changed the rules for 2023. And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Started looking at the FAA website, started looking at other stuff, and sure enough, they're like, "Hey, this is not the simple. You can't just memorize this crap from ASA and Dauntless. If you do that, you're gonna fail." And I instant panic. Like, no, I know how helicopters make whop and whop noises. Pull stick this way, the people get smaller. I couldn't tell you what the hell a Cessna does. What, fabric skin? Covered in pigs? Like what? I don't do that. And it was just a real rude wake-up call. So I got back on the FAA website and I started scrolling through pubs. And I came across the 8083, which is basically the knowledge Bible that you would sit through college courses in. And it tells you everything you need to know about basically A&P programs, what's going to be on the test. It goes through the entire damn thing. And it's well over 200 megabytes. It's a friggin' file and a half, man. It hurts the soul to read that thing. So yeah, so you start going down that path, and then you realize, oh, hey, by the way, there's another set of pubs you got to get. Well, what's that called? Oh, the FARs and the CFRs. What? Well, why do I need to know these regulations? What do you mean? Why? Why are we doing this? And then your guys' episode popped back in my head. I was like, oh, crap. They did say you needed to know your FARs. Great. So yeah, so that was how we started there. And so on a dare and just started the process. And I studied for 3.5 months before I went to a local school that did a quick prep and testing.
I mean, the part where you mentioned about all the stuff you listed, like you have to know this publication, you have to know the CFRs, you have to know the FARs and all that. I'm like, oh my God, man. Like, and this is just to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
It's well, like, what's interesting is like they're almost taking away the hands-on, learning to wrench aspect and making it more CYA, because you need to learn the legalities and how to stay out of hot water more than you need to know how to do the actual job. Maybe that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too cynical on that, but that's kind of how it seems. Just listening to your experience.
I think
like anything, I think that's where we're heading in the world, because everybody's suing everybody and everybody's trying to throw you in prison.
Yeah. One thing I really took away from it, and this was after, of course, everything I'm talking to you guys about was after a couple of, dominoes fell 4 different ways. And I realized, all right, I got to look at this another way. So when I took my very first test, I took the general test and I failed it. And I failed it by 2 questions. And of course, it's because I changed 3 answers at the end because I'm a dumbass. I was like, you shouldn't have changed your answers. You would have passed. And I'm really glad I did, because it helped me do another thing. After spending 20 years on helicopters, I know how to turn a wrench. I know how to read a pub. You put a pub in front of me, I'm going to read it. I'm going to know the answer. I'm going to be able to figure out what I need to figure out. Because I'm old school, I'll thumb pages. Nowadays, you're cool. You got Control F, whatever. And I just happened to pick up the 4313. And that was basically kind of I don't want to call it a bombshell for me, but it was definitely something that pierced my vision. Because the 4313 was basically just that pub of like, look, this plane doesn't have a book for doing the maintenance on it. You got some old decrepit Cessna that this doesn't mate anymore, and the company burned down back in World War II, and you can fix this plane if you have this book. And I don't remember. I think there was a rivet patch that I just opened the book to, and I'm like, man, I don't know shit about rivets. But what am I going to do here? I'm not an airframer. And it took me out of the element of thinking, okay, look, helicopters, cool story, bro. Can you do an annual inspection on a Piper? Well, yeah, if I got the books, I can probably do it. Okay. Well, if you're going to be an A&P, you need to know that, because you're the one that's going to sign it off. You can't go back and say, oh, well, it's not a Bell 412. I can't really work on this because it's not that. You're an all-encompassing mechanic. You've got that responsibility. You by the letter of the law, you put your name on that paper with your code. That means, hey, I am saying this is good, whether it's a Cessna 747, F-22, whatever it is. And that's when I realized, okay, I've been looking at this too narrow. You're not just a mechanic. You are telling, you're saying, hey, look, I know this stuff and I know where to find this stuff and I know how to do this stuff. A FAA person, here you go. Here's my green card. I inspected this per the publications that were supplied to me by the manufacturer. I know it's safe. It can go fly. Thank you very much for the experience. And that really put it all in perspective and helped me kind of get through the next phases of it.
It's funny that you mentioned that because, like, I mean, I myself, like, when I look at airplanes, like, the first thing I default to is whatever I touch last, and I feel every mechanic's kind of sort of like that.
Yeah,
and it sometimes it does have to take a moment of failure for you to kind of take a look back at yourself, kind of assess what you did wrong, right? I mean, kind of, there's some instances where you're too stubborn to really learn your lesson. I'm a prime example of this because I keep making them. But having that reset, I would say, let's call it a reset. It makes you like really just broaden your perspective on things. It makes you really think critically about critically thinking. If that sounds so cliche, but that's more or less what it's doing, and it takes you out of your bubble, which I feel like a lot of mechanics today, actually anybody in any industry today, have that embedded problem. You know, it's like that institutional thing where you don't realize you're doing it, but you just color along because that's all you know. We often hear this we hear this fallacy like we're just appealing to tradition. This is how we've always done it. This is how it's been done for the last 20, 30, 50, 60 years.
God, I hate
and that. There's nothing going to change. And if it does change, it's like these insignificant little changes, like they added a comma or they did a semicolon or they add an extra line or something like that, which is kind of sort of true to some extent, right? I mean, maybe certain things, you know, they're only if the changes are within 6 months apart, it's maybe not going to be that significant of a deal. But for certain things, as you have alluded to, like it's gonna trip you up, and then once you put your name on this thing, that's fair game, you know, for all types of legal stuff, you know. So, but I appreciate the fact that you're open enough to say that. Yeah, I bombed the general, and just based off of the stuff that you had to read prior, I could understand why. Because as MVP has stated earlier, like the old-fashioned way of doing things was just here's a study guide. It's been tried and true by basically everybody. Study the answers, study the verbiage. You will never see this again. Have fun, right? And that's the general consensus I've heard from a lot of A&P mechanics. I'm a ballpark, say from 2016 prior. So every time I've seen someone like, oh, I just studied prepware or ASA or something, or like just study enough to pass and then you'll forget it ever again. Granted, there's some stuff like canvassing that is next to obsolete or next to non-existent unless you're working like super old like garage builds.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, that was my favorite part of all my training, was doing fabric covered birds.
I remember you saying that. Yeah. To each their own.
I think it's because it was something that's just, even back when I was doing it, was obsolete nearly at that time, but it was just it was why I like it was because it was what I would say legit craftsman work, to make it so, you know, it wasn't just changing parts and it wasn't just servicing something, you know, swapping boxes out. It was legit making something from nothing with your own hands, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. Anyway, sorry, MB 6.
No worries. I mean, that's totally legit though, and you know, some of these skills, like you don't realize you like it until you actually have to invest some time into it, right? Like you said with the canvassing, like I'm never gonna use this shit, right? But maybe not necessarily use the canvassing method, but then you'll notice like some of the skills you learn, like fundamentally, like, and then you realize you can apply to other stuff, right? And I think that's kind of like the concept that the tests in these new revisions in general are trying to do. Is not so much like you will need to do this. I think it's more so along the lines like you having to chase the answer will fundamentally show you like how to do other stuff. You know, I might be off on a tangent on that one, but it's kind of sort of sounds true. I mean,
so my instructor in A&P school, you know, you got your basic understanding back then, you know, hey, here's an airframe, and they all are somewhat similar in their systems and their operation. They just look a little bit different and are different sizes. But you know, some people are more mechanically inclined than others, and will get a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I remember the instructor saying, "Look, just because you're here doesn't mean you know anything. And when you graduate and get that card in your hands, I'm here to tell you right now, you still know nothing. He goes, all that is a license to work, and you're going to get your knowledge once you're out there. You're not getting here. You're getting the fundamentals and understanding, but you're really just here to get your license to work. That's all you're doing.
Solid advice right there. I mean, it's a license to learn, and the sooner people accept that, it's better. That's really it is. You know, you're cool. You're certified. However, you're certified in anything that you start out in. You're going to be able to sign off inspections, but in reality, are you there yet? You got to have the intestinal fortitude to be like, hey, this is above my level. I'm getting there. I appreciate the coolness here, and yeah, I got the cool card, and I'll happily put my number there after we've done some training. Thank you.
Yep, there's that little fine print, right? Maybe sometimes not a fine print. It's just kind of like a little asterisk at the end, like wait a minute, right? So you've had a reset of perspective, of mindset, and you tackled on the other side of things. Like really had to challenge your perspective. And the second go, you decided you passed the test, but like, well, did you notice anything different when you took it the second time?
Yeah. So the cool part is that the next day I went and tested the next day. I was like, no, we're not falling behind. And I scored an 84 the next day. Yeah, it was an afternoon test. I went back through the general, and then one thing I'd done that the guy told me not to do, the guy that went to Baker, is I did spend time reading the subject on the bottom. So the cool thing about the ASA pub, it'll give you the right answer, but then it'll give you a description at the bottom. So I really dug in with that on that prepware stuff. I did use Dauntless's prepware stuff, and I was going back through re-clicking and seeing things like, why didn't I see this before? How did I miss this? And I realized that I was not really going through it in a smart way. I wasn't going through a learner's mode. I was trying to just basically drink from the fire hose and try to get keywords. So I spent the next probably 12 hours just rereading general stuff that I was like, okay, I don't know about that. Let me read about it. Okay, cool. I got it. Or that's the next one. Okay, I know this stuff. That's no problem. So that helped me kind of understand things. So the next day I went back, I took the test again, and I had maybe 2 questions that were exactly the same. I had an entirely new test, and the majority of the test was close to what I read in ASA and Dauntless, but I did notice that several were reworded, and I was like, oh, you sneaky guy. And that really bothered me, because it was just why are you going to say, all right, you talk about a semi shell on this one, and then you're going to talk about another longer on in stringers, and you're like, wait a minute, these 2 pieces don't really match. Why is this like this? And then you're going back through the answers, you're like, oh, you reworded it. Oh, okay, there you go. So semi, that's not semi. And then you're clicking the right answer and you're moving on. So that was a lot better. As I pull up my notes here, the one thing in general, man, this was a kick in the teeth. And MVP, you'll probably laugh at this. Friggin' weight and balance, man. Oh my God.
God, I was just having conversations on that at work today.
Oh, were you? Oh, yeah. Man. Yeah. So I thought, when I was studying weight and balance, dude, I couldn't figure it out. I was staring at that public, and this, who is writing Greek? This is America. I need this in English. And finally I had a guy break it down, and he's like, dude, you're being dumb. I was like, okay, then break it down. He goes, W times A equals M. I was like, oh, weight times arm equals mo. Oh, and then you divide. Oh, I'm an idiot. And after that, I got it. Well, there was one question where you're looking at it, and it gives you weight and it gives you arm, and you're looking a moment, and you're like, okay, cool, I'm here. And then it throws a curveball, and you have to find there's a middle ground. And I can't remember the question off the top of my head. I think the answer was like 96.3 or something. But they left it out on purpose to make it so that you're, oh, cool, you understand weight times arm. All right, now, okay, you got all that stuff. Great. Now, hey, we're going to move this part off. Now what's missing? And you're like, oh, crap. Is it nose up or nose down? Oh, no. Is it a positive moment or is it a negative moment? Oh, crap. And I went into scramble mode for about 5 minutes. I was like, I'm wasting time on this damn question. But then I finally found it in the middle, and I was like, oh, you sneaky bastards. And it was a change of an answer by a 0.1. So if you were off a 0.1, that question was wrong. And then right after that, looking forward 3 different points here, that exact question was going to be on my oral, because every question you now miss on the FAA, on your written test, goes to your oral instantaneously.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh, it's awful. Oh my God, that awful. But the cool part is, all right, we can talk about it. Why not? We're on the right path. So the cool thing is that when you finish the test, you get your codes. Right on your sheet, it'll tell you, hey, this is what you got wrong, and this is what you're going to get tested on. You can highlight the code and put it into Google, and it'll tell you the exact section that you screwed up, and you go to the 8083 and reread that section. You're going to understand exactly what you did wrong. So when your oral comes up with your DME, they're going to ask you a question out of that section somehow, some way, and you're going to have to answer it to pass your oral.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the newest one of the curves. I was going to be like, we're not going to hold on to that. Let's fire that one out early.
Let people know that one. That's interesting.
I mean, but that's kind of a cheat, but that's also like, it's going to be unique to you. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is what I got. This is what everyone fails at. Like, I don't know, man. I kind of recall that weight and balance formula you mentioned. It was something about it was empty weight, distance out, and distance ballast to the new CG, something like that.
You're like, where is this damn thing moving? Yeah.
And and the reference was like FAA 8083-30. I don't know why I remember that. The silly things I remember, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm autistic, like I remember numbers.
No, we all are.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Probably.
Yeah. There's always something in the world of this, in this life when it comes to FAA. Certain things just always stick out. And it's like, why do I remember that? I don't need to know that. I'm not even dealing with that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those traumatizing things. Like you got burned on it, or it punked you once or twice. And so to ensure it never happens again, you burn it into that deep part of your brain. And then you don't touch it for 15 years, but somebody will ask and you can rattle it off real quick. Just one of those things.
Yeah.
So if you guys want, since I have my notes up, I have 11 lessons learned for the general. I do have lessons learned for every section. I don't know if you guys want me to go through those, or we'll go one and talk another. How do you want to do it?
You know what? Like, let's talk about the one that probably whooped your ass the hardest. You know what I mean? Like the one I'd feel like would be the biggest trip up for just about anybody, because I mean, I'm the kind that goes into a test thinking like, oh my God, I don't know nothing. And then I look at it, I'm just like, I'm good at guessing, like I'm a decent test taker. Like, I don't know anything about the material, but I'm decent at guessing. Like, this sounds logical, and I'll somehow get it right. But there's other things, like I've seen some people where like they would stress that you must know how to do this. And then I go to it and there's maybe like 3 questions out of it. Like, fuck, and I just totally just nerfed the rest of it. So I would say like probably what was your we could start from like the highest, like this one will screw you up.
I think for me, the general was the opener. So I mean, you always remember your first, because that's how they started out. The general. If you pass general, then you can move on to A&P, airframe and powerplant. If you don't pass general, you're not moving on. They're not going to let you know, which is an interesting. Like, okay, well that sucks. So if you don't really know your general aviation stuff, start there. Kind of get the opening of understanding it, because my real background, I feel, is more, I don't know if you'd go with this same thing on the 6 is, we're more power plants guys, and more than an airframe. Give me a power plant, I can work on it. Well, when you're a turbo shaft guy, you don't know dick about reciprocating engines. Funny story. Who knew? What's a magneto? What? Oh, don't touch it? Oh, okay. So power plants was actually a little bit more mentally challenging for me, just because I had to start understanding turboprop, and then N1 and 2, and different, how the blades move, then the pressure differential for flat pitch and how the props move. And I was like, wow, okay, that's kind of cool. Yeah, you move that and it does this, move that. Well, all right, cool. That was fun. So that made Powerplant more fun for me in the end when I understood how to learn. But general was the hardest, really, because you start talking about longitude. I'm just sure, I don't know if you guys have the memory scarred into your brain of the little plane showing, okay, this is the horizontal axis. This is the vertical axis. This is the lateral axis. And then you start doing questions and it says, no, that's the latitude. That's the or longitudinal axis. You're like, no, it isn't. You friggin' roll the aircraft the other way. That's the goddamn lateral. and you're just getting pissed off and you're staring at the picture and somebody goes, hey, dude, remember that? And you're like, you can shut your filthy whorish mouth. You're right. All right, I'll remember that. So that stupid picture sticks out in my head to this day. But yeah, general was kind of the tough one just because it was so all encompassing, talking about so many different pieces. It was, the skin, talking about longeron and stringers and corrosion, friggin' corrosion. Oh my God. I never want to deal with corrosion again. It was so aggravating. Yeah, I think I had 15 questions alone on corrosion, 15 to 20 on that damn test. Both of them, I had a lot of corrosion questions.
Jeebus.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, intergranular. Okay. Yep. All right. Yep. No. That's dissimilar metal. That's not the answer you want, though. You son of a bitch. It's corrosion hurt. That one sucked. And I would say if you are not mathematically happy is a good word. Because I'm a math rock. Like, I'm not even a rock. I'm more like a pebble that's been buried in math. And like, I hide from it. You need to refresh on PEMDAS hardcore.
That's a good point.
That was a rough one, dude, wasn't it? It was like, okay, PEMDAS, parentheses. Okay. Exponents. Yeah. There's like 5 of them. What the shit? Oh, dude. The guy, sidebar. One of the guys I was in the class with, he was up there taking it and he was a math genius. The dude's an engineer. And I was like, I hate you. I just really dislike you. And at the end of the test, he had 3 math questions. He's like, how many did you have? And I was like, I don't want to talk about it. And he's like, how bad? I'm like, 10 questions of straight different formulas. And each one, he heard me muttering under my breath, mother son of a bitch. And he's like, yep, he's on a math one. So, but they let you have the calculator, which is nice. That is a godsend that you can use a calculator. So they give you certain ones that you're authorized to use. Definitely understand that calculator and how to use it to your advantage, especially when you're doing the math for your capacitance. The 1 over R1, 1 over R2, 1 over R3 equals over 1 again. That was important to really break that down because you had to break everything out of parallel to complete the circuit. So knowing how to use the calculations for that is very, very, very important. So pay attention to that. There's a lot of math and electrical on there for that.
Oh, and schematics, I would imagine too, right?
Oh, yeah, there was a couple. There was a couple of good ones. Oh, hey, yeah.
Did you have to like break down the different colors on the diodes? Remember, each diode ring had a different color, and it was for a different.
Oh, thank God I didn't get that one, dude. That was in the study guide. I was like, oh, please, God, no.
Yeah,
I don't. Man. Oh, no.
Those are ones where I was like, and then I might as well be like the vision of a dog when it comes to that, and it's like, well, is that blue or gray?
Oh, yeah. That's rude. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are tough ones for me.
The landing gear horn ones was funny because they would give you the schematic where it would show, all right, hey, why didn't the horn go off? And the gear is in the up position, but you're looking at the schematic and they have it in a gear down position. So you have to basically take the picture you see and move the switches and be like, oh, okay, cool. I moved the switch from there to there. Okay, power's going to run here. All right, where's the ground? All right, where's ground going? Okay, there. And then there's another one that's just the worst one because it's got so many wires and different pieces. And I think it was the crossfeed one. Yeah, the crossfeed puzzle. was just rude because it's like, okay, how many relays is this thing running? If the bus bar is running here and you're just kind of going down, you're like, oh crap, where's the switch? And it's just, you got to go back a couple times. But yeah, the schematics are pretty rude. Now, the cool part is this, the memorization you can with the schematics, but I'd caution you, they did change 2 of them. And I believe it was on the power plant. Power plant had 1 change. Airframe, they changed one of the metal bends with the setback for the setback in RT. They changed the numbers in there from the ones that you've seen before in Dauntless. I think they added 1 is what it is. It's not in the ASA or Dauntless book. So they added that. So you do need to run, make sure you know how to do the setback in RT. And that kind of plays into that one there. But a lot of them you can look at and go, okay, cool, I understand how to do it. And that will get you through it if they changed all the numbers.
That's a really good tip, right? So for general stuff, definitely brush up on the math. Corrosion, 100% like understand and figure out what the different types of corrosion are and how they look and how to treat them. Schematics definitely, and wait. I think did I say wait and CG? Wait and CG definitely.
Yeah. Yes.
Definitely wait and CG. So after you taken the general, and you moved on to did you have to take the general first, or did you? Or
yeah.
Okay.
There was no negotiating that one. It was general or you go home. So, and these tests, oh dude, 175 a pop.
Really?
That's real money, dude. That hurt to drop a second 175. Like, I had to call my wife. I'm like, hey, you know how we wanted groceries this week? You need to go get ramen. Cause yeah, my bad. I bombed that one. Dude, that hurt, dude. 175 twice.
Ew.
Wow.
That sounds painful.
How many questions are they now?
It's still the same. I think it's 6,500, 100.
Okay.
Yeah, they haven't changed that, which, I mean, it's nice on the hundreds because it's like, all right, you can get 31, you can get 30 wrong and be okay. You get 31 wrong, you suck again. So don't only get 30 wrong. Just, right. You can do this.
I know. I remember going through taking a test. I'm like, I'll come back to that one because I didn't want to waste time on it. If it was one that I was a little iffy on, so I'd go through and answer all the ones that I was for sure, and then I'd go back and count. And I would try to answer some, but I know some other guys would go back and they're like, "Well, there's 20 of them I can't answer, but that means I can pass." So they just wouldn't answer them, and they just turn in the test.
Way to roll the dice, like
you know what I mean? They're like, there's only 20 here that I couldn't answer, so that's a passing grade. Here's my test. No, you didn't answer 20 of them. Grade it.
Call it good and let me go. Let me from this torture.
Right. And sitting in these tests, they I think just being in a test environment just really scrambles your brain too. Regardless of where the test event is, when you have a proctor there who's making sure that you're doing, I think just having a proctor there just really scrambles you as well.
So I didn't have a proctor. No. See, this is the funny thing, and I'm glad you brought that up. Can I sidebar you on this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so you go, what is it, PSI? I think it is. I think it's the company that does it. So you go to these testing centers, and they do it a couple of different ways. The newest, well, I wouldn't say the newest, but the general is if you go to the testing center, they have cameras that are video and audio. The guy doesn't have to be in there with you if you are being recorded. So they send you up there to the test center and let you take the test, but they are monitoring you through the camera. Well, the guy even, he even told me, he's like, I saw you were having some trouble there. I'm like, all right, creeper, don't make it weird. Could at least come up and hit me, let me know you're there.
Hey, is it all good? Everything fine,
Yeah.
So, hey, I noticed the sweat building on your brow.
Good to see you die on that one, jerk. But the crappy thing with ASA and Dauntless is when you're taking these practice stuff, it doesn't match with PSI. So you don't know, like if you've never seen these tests from PSI, you get that screen and you're like, okay, it's a computer program. I'm answering the questions. That's all I'm doing. and then, you got to go through it and answer it. That's an added shock value to be like, okay, I'm not familiar with this after just ingesting 3,000 questions to spit out 65 or 100. So it's something to be ready for, because you're going to get the question and then you're going to get 3 to 4 answers to choose from to click, and then you click next, and you can click flag to go back if you want. It'll highlight it red, which is god awful in my opinion. Because you see red, you freak out, and you're like, oh my god, I'm going to change an answer. Don't do that. Don't take it from me. Don't change your damn answer. If you've moved on, you've moved on. It's done. But yeah, the PSI, great program, but you need to Google that, take a look at the screen so you have an idea of what it looks like. That's one thing I wish I had done.
That's a really good tip too, and especially, and I've seen some individuals who have more or less like gave this assumption that you can pick which test to go with first. And I can't remember who it was that gave me that assumption. I'm like, oh yeah, I went to go take my Airframe.
It was probably me, because when I was doing it, there was a whole bunch of us at one time, and there was only so many computers to take it on. So it's like, hey, because I think I took my power plant first, then I went general, and then Airframe. That's how I did them.
Okay, so
that would have been nice.
It wasn't you. It was because the person that told me is like, oh, I took my Airframe first. Like, you can pick? I thought you had just like in Brian's case, I thought you had to pick the general first. I'm like, why wouldn't you? But to that point, in your case, it makes sense. You can only have so many. So like, here you go.
Well, because like some avionics people will only get Airframe. They won't get anything else. They'll just get the Airframe aspect of it. But I guess, so before that's all you would have to test for, right? So the Airframe guys only just wanted the Airframe part of it so they could sign off a bunch of their installs and mods and whatever else. But now it sounds like it's kind of all 3 in this order or nothing.
Damn.
Yeah, you can get away. So basically, you got to have general now. It's like general has to happen. Then you can decide if you need just an A or if you want P. You can still do just A or P, but you have to do G first.
Right. So looking at that now, you say, okay, well, if I need the Airframe, right? If I'm avionics and I need my Airframe and I have to take the general because of it and then take the Airframe, it's like, why not just take the power plant? You're already there.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just, you've already taken 2 of the 3. What's the third one to you?
So the other problem, and I ran into this with a FSDO, because I'm trying to help a guy in my current business at the company I work for now. He's been a metal bender his whole life. The guy has got probably 40,000 hours of his life bent in metal. And he just moved into one where they're like, hey, you got to get your AMP. And the guy's like, no, I don't want to do that. What do I do here? So I called the FSDO and I was like, what can I do for this guy? He's like, well, tell you what, we can get him his G and A. Can you get him through 3,000 hours of P? I was like, yeah, we can do that. We can, that's not a problem. He's like, okay, cool. As long as he does that, we can do G and A. I was like, well, can I get him just A? He goes, no, you can't. Like, he was like, dumbass, you just did this. You know better. And I love him for it. I love our FSDO. He's friggin' phenomenal down here. But he's like, yeah, he can do just A and it'll be fine. But he's got to get G and A. And then once he gets enough of his stuff, resend me his paperwork. We'll sign him off for that. And then he can go test for his P.
Damn. I mean, but I get it. And that's a pretty good hookup too, like to just be able to be flexible like that. But at the same time, like I don't really dick around with engines. Why do I need to?
Yeah.
And that's, and I'm kind of one of those people, like I was saying, like if I'm already that far, I might as well just do it,
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very true. Very true.
In for a penny, in for a pound. Just get it done. Because now you're like, okay, cool. If you don't want to sign off power plant stuff, there's a great thing as an AMP. If you don't want to sign it off, you don't have to. You don't have to be the end all be all there. If it's not your thing, don't make it your thing. That's okay.
Yeah, some people are powertrain kind of groups, and others are artisans, and rivets, and others like to let smoke out of boxes. Just find your area of expertise and go for it.
Very true. So after you've passed the general, you've had a whole new perspective on things. You had to take the airframes first, or you kind of you could pick and choose which one you had to take next?
We can pick and choose, but I'd spent a lot of time. I actually started training on airframe because I was worried that was going to be my hard one.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, was I wrong. Who would have thought? So I spent a lot of time studying ASA and Dauntless for the airframe, so I felt very comfortable with that. So I rolled right from general to airframe, and it was a good move. It really was. I ended up scoring an 86, I think it was.
Was there a lot of stuff in the general that kind of bled over to the airframe stuff?
Not as much as you'd expect, because that's what I was told was, hey, look, if you do airframe, general's going to be fine. I was like, oh, well, that'll be fine. I'll work it out. Only a few things really. And a lot of it had to do with the schematic and electrical knowledge that we had from the general. Those kind of rolled back into the airframe. So that was cool. That was like, all right, awesome. I loved that piece. But like skin and structure knowledge, you got a little bit of good stuff from the general. I mean, talking about composites and monocule and semi-monocule, it was like, oh, okay, cool. And fabric, you that helped you from the general. But it wasn't like, I wouldn't say it was a trip up. So it kind of made it a little bit easier, but it wasn't 100%.
That's kind of funny. You mentioned like, oh yeah, some of the electrical schematic stuff actually helped out with the airframes. Like what? Like, it kind of tripped me up a bit. Like why would they have anything electrical with the airframe stuff? And then obviously because bonding, dumbass, bonding and grounding. It's one of those like that sounds dumb, but now that I say it out loud, I'm like, yeah, you're pretty stupid. So, what were some takeaways, I would say, from the airframe portion that really stuck out to you that you feel everyone should really be mindful of?
One of the ones I'll say is if you are using ASA and Dauntless and you're just using the test me function, you're going to fail.
Ooh.
Do not study by just hitting the test me thing, because the way these tests are designed, they give you, like I said, 3,000 questions per section. That's a lot of things to learn. When they do these tests, you only get per section, it's like 5%. They're going to be like, oh, hey, we're going to take out of this section of 200 things of corrosion, we're going to ask you 3 things on it. So if you're just testing yourself with that knowledge, the self-test, you're just going to bomb it. So don't do that. Don't be that one. And there's a great YouTuber out there that did that. He talked about, I've been studying for 6 years. And I'm like, dude, you just studied this test. That you studied the test function. You didn't go sections. I can tell you didn't. So
he was trying to take his test for 6 years.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. Maybe if I knew that individual, I'd go 6 years. I said, maybe after year 2, you just enroll in A&P school.
Yeah.
At that point, like
6 years might be a bit much. Maybe it was 6 months, but he'd been studying for a long time. If you want to, if you feel googly, you can Google A&P test failure, and I'm sure that his video will come up and you'll listen to it and look at it and go, your story's not adding up, bro. And I'm still to this day, I don't know if he's an A&P, and if he is, I'm proud of you, bro. Good job. You made it through. Good on you. But the way he was discussing it very much so sounded like he was using just the test me function. So don't do that. Please don't do that. That's a big takeaway not to do. It'll hurt you.
That's a very good life lesson as well, because you would always have those individuals who kind of just skip to the test and just take it enough times until they pass. Example was myself. I've done that, but mostly for the ones, like it's mandatory training kind of thing, like sit here, watch this video for an hour, take a test to say that you were certified in whatever the video told you, but for like that one person's example, like if you're just studying to take a test and here comes the FAA or whatever authority that you're taking the test for, they say, you know what? We're going to throw a curveball at you guys. We're going to revamp everything. Then everything you studied for just became worthless,
Yeah. So the majority of it, these are the kind of takeaways. About a third of the questions were not in either the ASA or the Dauntless. That really screwed me up. And the only thing that saved my ass with those was that they were somewhat in a general vicinity of how I already understood the system. And that was from just, old school experience of aviation in general. and a few of it was from the 8083. That was huge. Another third of the test was directly from the guide, but reworded. So what you normally knew what the question is actually in the answers, and the answer was actually the question. So it was like, oh crap, they flipped it and they moved a couple of words. So it was like, okay, no big deal. I think I've got it here and here. So that's pretty good. And then the final third of it was, no kidding, straight ASA or Dauntless, word for word. And it was like, oh, thank God. So, you knew what is that? Third. All right. Yeah. So you're in the box of 33%. You're doing okay. So it's very important to remember, go back and do the calculations, understand your airframe pieces, the fabric, warping, stitching, all those pieces, they still play a factor for you to go back and play with. And then really you're digging into the nasty of riveted spacing, setback, RT. They talk a lot about bending and, man, double spacing rivet heads. Oh, what's the size of the shank? How long is it? What's the diameter? What is this reading? All right, you have to make this batch. Oh, crap. Math. Fine. I'll do your stupid math, Mr. FAA man. God, I hope I got that right. It's pretty cool. Corrosion, a little bit, not too much. And then the biggest one, if you don't understand it when you're going through the ASA and Dauntless, read about it some more and then bust out the 8083 to understand it. Really study to understand. Don't just study to regurgitate it. You're going to find yourself in a little bit of a box.
That's a very good one. I like the fact that you said that, like, study to understand. That's the big one. I think that's what really helps us, MVP and I, like, whenever we have to do anything, is we ask questions to really understand. It's not because we're trying to stump the chump and be a total dick about it. Which,
right? Yeah, I always say, I'm like, hey man, I'm asking because you're the SME and I'm not.
Yeah,
you tell me what you're doing. I'm just going to verify that what you say is factual.
Yeah, because again, if once I understand what's going on, what you're trying to say, when I have to say it back to somebody else, it may not be as articulated as how you told me, but it's ballpark around the same. It's not around the same thing, Like, I'm putting you in the same destination, the same slope path. So like, it's not like I'm throwing you off, or I'm making something up, or it's since changed, or whatever the case may be. So that's definitely a good tip right there. Is like, study to understand, especially with stuff that you never really seen before. That's more or less me. Like, I honestly feel like the airframe sections were hard, but in my actuality, my hardest one was the electricity and the avionics side of the house, which is crazy, But then again, I never really dabbled with electrical stuff, so I mean, that's a good reason why it really screwed me up.
Yeah, because most of us spend our time being box changers, not really breaking it apart back shop style, which is what some of the questions are tailored to,
Right, and then likewise with the rivets, like, book this rivet, okay, done, or you just kind of follow a pattern, like, here's the pattern, just make it look like this, okay, easy enough, tap 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 tap, done.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The weird pieces with this whole testing piece is the changing the mentality from the call it pre-2020. Well, let's go from 2020 prior. Study it, answer it, get on with your life. It almost feels like the FAA is really kind of changing it up more and more to basically fact check that you actually have a little bit further in the knowledge one, because they know, like, hey, look, people are just studying this test and passing it, but what are we getting on our return for investment? Mm-hmm. Are we really getting these right AMPs? Are we getting that? And I can see what the thought process is. And though I don't like it, they have that one, because that's just the nature of our business. We're in a very dangerous business. Hundreds of thousands of lives are in our hands with one wrench.
Yeah, because they used to view it as like, hey, study to pass, get through it, get out there. The company or whatever you're working for will give you the in-depth training that's going to make you, a knowledgeable AMP and make you a good asset out on the flight line. I wonder if the FAA is seeing a dip in quality maintainers or whatever in certain spot checks within a group of companies. They've gone to several across the nation and just started spot checking people and going, these they're not as knowledgeable as we were expecting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know,
like
that
just over some interviews or whatever, and they say, okay, well, let's make it a little bit more stringent on the front end, and at least give them, if they get through this, then we're comfortable knowing that they have a solid foundation by which they're going to build the rest of their career off of. I'm just spitballing here, you know what I mean?
I think you're on, man. I mean, because in reality, you guys have talked about it a lot. You know, the old cats, we love you guys. You guys have done great things for us, guys and gals. Thank you for setting the bar for us the way you did, starting back when you were out there helping those guys launch that thing off Kitty Hawk there in that great plane and showing us the way that today. But all these older cats, they're starting to retire, and that old knowledge is going away, and they're taking a lot of it with them to the grave. They're not passing it on. So these newer generation of mechs, you know, we're not, no offense to you auto mechanics, we love you guys, thank you for all that you do, but we're not ASE mechanics, you know, we're not these guys like that. We're the mechanics of the sky. There's a lot more pieces to this puzzle, and we gotta step it up on that. So I think they're really putting that pressure on to be like, look, you're not just a bolt changer, bud. You're saying that you know how to do this. You have to be able to do these things.
Right. Very, very true. And especially now, like, as we've been talking about thus far, like, we're trying to get away from you just memorizing the answers, because these answers are not universal. Some are, but not all encompassing. And then, like, as MVP said, like, say we go do a spot check or an audit, or we just off the cuff challenge somebody and they start doing this appeal to tradition. Like, well, I don't know. This is how I've always been doing it. You know, no one told me no. No one told me to pump the brakes. So I just assumed all was well, and I moved on with life. And that's what
you're like, the manual doesn't say that, and you're like, well, it doesn't tell me I can either. And you're like, oh my god,
I hate that.
Well, nobody's telling you not to jump off the bridge, so you're going to go do that. Please do that. Actually, yeah.
That's a whole other. We could have a whole episode just on that one tangent. You know, that one Back to the Future branch we just created. So, with the airframes, the rivet spacing for sure, the bend rate, the bending, the RT, all that stuff. And the 8083, definitely know those for sure. Yep. And then
I'm hearing a common theme so far, and that's review the 8083.
Right.
And it sucks, dude. 8083. It's so big. Oh god, dude, it is so daunting. When I downloaded that thing, I'm all, oh, you GFY. Nope. I want nothing to do with this crap. But it was in the end of it, I'm like, oh, you sons of bitches. You did it right.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
Yeah. It's one of those, right?
They can do like a, I'll call it a crosswalk, and you know, Six, you're familiar with this, and Brian, maybe you are too. But the 8210, when you guys released Rev D, and they kind of did a crosswalk, and it showed old verbiage to new verbiage, what was added, what was removed, you know, in two different colors, and it just kind of explained things out. I wonder if the 8083 can have something like that, where, hey, here's all this information you could ever need. However, these are the primary things, right? And highlight those in red or something like that, so they stand out. You say, okay, you know, all of this is important. These red pieces are extremely important. You know,
you know what? If that doesn't exist, marketing freaking gap right there, everybody. Yep. So we just gave someone the keys to the freaking jet right there. You know what I mean?
Oh, maybe that should be us.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
do it.
The reason why I bring that up is because the FAR aim for pilots to take their private pilot exams or whatever, we had one guest who came on who sold those FAR aim books, but they went through the painstaking process of tabbing out each of the various sections to say, like, if you're going to test for instruments, flip to this section. Or if you're going to go test for whatever, or you're going to go study for your check ride, go to this section, whatever, right? So it sounds real silly, but it's amazing, like, how many, like, pilots have bought into this, like, just straight up, like, someone already did the work by studying it for me. Easy day, right? So I don't know, man. Maybe we just discovered a freaking a well of money right here. Right? Just get the 8083, just start tabbing it out. Volumes 1 and 2, we'll just like take turns like over the course of a couple months or something. Hey, you want to pass your A&P exams? Here's the tabbed version of the 8083.
Yeah, remember back. I don't know how old you are, Brian, but back in my high school days when they had, the internet was just a new thing, and we had Cliff Notes. Remember those?
Oh yeah,
they started off in books, and then they moved to the interwebs, but almost a Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
I almost feel like the ASA and Dauntless are the Cliff Notes.
Maybe you're right.
To a point,
it's close, but the way they're changing things now, it's like Cliff Notes got to change. Cliff Notes are getting outdated.
Yeah, so I'm saying, you know what I mean, like the tab version of stuff, kind of like how they did for the far aim for pilots. That might be the new market here. You know what I mean? Or at least like it's the same 8083 with like, but kind of like those e-learning CBT type things where you kind of just like click through the sections and it pops up as a lesson or something like that. I don't know. Someone who's good at coding, like, help us out here. I think we found a gold mine here.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. You meant the Cliff Notes are getting outdated. I was going through my postgraduate this past year, and some of the courses in there, right? You got the lectures that you're listening to, and then they've got a PowerPoint slide deck to go with it, and you're reading along through the slide deck as you're listening, and you're going, that's wrong. What they said here is wrong. This and that. So you have to email the professor. You're like, hey, these slides are not current with the data. Oh yeah, I made those 5 years ago when I first took over this course. Just make sure you take notes and adjust accordingly. Why don't you just update the PowerPoint? You want it saved? Like God, you lazy.
I like how we all collectively just freaking update.
Let me guess. It's in the cloud and you can't get it, right? That's what it is. You can't get to the cloud.
POS.
Yeah, you don't have to save to your desktop like every other normal human being. Like, come on.
Right? Or it's like in this thumb drive that's like password protected and you totally forgot what the password was,
Remember the old security back when you would travel with classified military information? It was one of those thumb drives that if you typed in the password 3 times wrong, it exploded on itself with a gel. Yep. It basically fried itself with a gel. I'm like, you kept it on one of those and you forgot the password and you fried the thumb drive and you kept your PowerPoint on from 6 years ago.
Freaking
good job, stupid.
Good job. Speaking of that, going off on another branch tangent here, a lot of lesson planning now, or at least in these newer high speed classes, PowerPoints are going away. Like, PowerPoints are more like index cards now. You know what I mean? Like, there's some information to kind of trigger your memories to go look it up, but not enough for you to run off of it. You know what I mean? A lot of learning stuff is all either by infographics, kind of like those don't do drugs posters you guys see on a safety board, or it's like these they call them like branching scenarios kind of thing, where it's almost like a CBT in itself, but it's like a storyboard of stuff. I'm like, what is this? Right? So I think the idea behind it is to like give you enough to want to experiment and reward you for experimenting, but still tell you you're wrong. It's like, nope, you picked the wrong answer, try again. It's like, oh, you picked this answer, here's what would have happened, and then have you circle back to keep trying again. You know what I mean? Explore your various options. Just like, well, which one's the right? And like these automatic responses of just like, what's the right answer and move on is like going away, and it's going away hard, which has some pros and cons to it as of right now, but I'm kind of glad we're going in that direction. So
the college guy that I was telling you about in that PowerPoint, or not the PowerPoint, the YouTube guy.
Yep.
From what it sounds like, I think the aviation colleges are going directly 8083 and the 4313 through the sections for them to learn it, and then they're going into the practical action to learn the hands-on one, so that where they're getting the visual learning and the kinesthetic learning together for them to get it all back. But it sounds like they're going directly 8083.
Ooh. Ooh.
Interesting. While we're talking aviation school and see if they say anything on their website about it.
Dude, I would love that job. Oh my! I know this is so stupid, and I shouldn't even be saying it. I would love to teach at friggin' A&P school. That would be so much fun.
Same here. I would like to be an instructor for some kind of course, whether it be aircraft related or quality assurance related. Like either of these things have like layers and layers which we can peel back, and like it's one of those kind of lesson plans that kind of build themselves. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like just in the evolution of aviation itself will give you material to really like experiment with, versus like some like it's very sterile and it happens over and over. It's like they're in theoretical concepts, you know what I mean? Like organizational leadership. I mean, like the fundamentals stay the same, but how we apply them is always evolving. So I mean, it'd be pretty cool. I'm just saying, like I would love to be an instructor somehow.
It's that whole military thing in us still. I mean, we love teaching it back and learning those pieces. And plus, after all the years of experience, it's good to give back because you can read one thing. It's like, look, you want to talk about intergranular corrosion? Okay, peel it back. How do you get there? What are we going with? How did they come about? Is that fretting? Now you've got the mixture. Well, what is this? And then it's like you see that light bulb go off in one of their eyes and you're like, got them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so stupid rewarding.
Yep. Learning has occurred. I think MVP and I have talked about that before. Like, trained versus learning.
Yeah.
So again, with the training thing, we're going off on another tangent here, but you got trained where like, well, they showed you the PowerPoint or you watched the video or you took the course, but you knew enough just to pass, but did you really learn anything? You know what I mean? Like how much of that volume that you just took from the fire hose did you actually drink? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, MVP, did you find anything yet?
No, I'm reading through here. Haven't found anything yet, but I am diligently searching to see if they mentioned anything about changing any of the courses in the 8083.
That might be forthcoming too. You know what I mean? Like they're talk. It's probably like in the works, but they haven't fired off an actual thing yet. Maybe, I don't know. That'd be my one excuse. Or it's one of those like you don't. They don't tell you until you've enrolled. It's kind of like we don't tell you what's really happening until after you enlisted.
Yeah. Whoops. How did that happen?
Would you look at that? Dang.
I mean, with the way the FAA is changing it, again, I totally understand it. I get it. I respect it. It is what it is. They're going to change the game because of the ones that run the game. But if they want us to learn this stuff, they're pushing it in that certain direction, and it really feels like they are really honing in on. Look, you got to know these sections. We're going to test you on this. We're going to tell you exactly what we're going to test you on. It's all in this book.
Mm-hmm.
You can have it for free. You can download it from us. We're giving you the knowledge. You have to pass this. So, with them giving you all that one and they're following that, it's like, okay, you're saying something here. And there's a ton of things. If you go onto the FAA's website and start going through their pubs and all the things that they have, they basically lay everything out. They tell you, hey, look, in this section, you're going to have this many % of questions asked. In this, you're going to have this many %. You need this to pass. You need this to do this. And it's like, okay, but it's in like 15 different sections.
Yeah. It's just by sheer volume that you just drown out.
Yeah. When you're angry doom scrolling the FAA webpage, downloading pubs because you're frustrated, you start finding some stuff on accident, and it gets dark.
The doom scroll is real, man.
It is. You're like, did you know? And then it turns into you go back out to the shop floor and you're leaning on the toolbox going, did you know that this is a regulation and that? And we're going, no, I've never even heard of that before. Yeah, well, it exists. Yeah. So for the school, it only says Title 14 CFR Part 147 and those requirements under that. And under that is Chapter 1, Subchapter H, which is Aviation Maintenance Technician Schools. Then it has certificate required, application requirements, durations, ratings, facilities, training. Yeah, nothing says 8083 specifically on here that I can find.
Damn.
I mean, I could be way off. That's again.
Well, but if that's the way the tests are going, and that's the whole point of these schools is to, like any other school, cycle people through and keep the grades high so they can remain accredited. I would expect they would tailor it to whatever the FAA is pushing at the time.
Right. So with that, let's round off with the power plant section. Like, I'm a power plant person myself, so I mean, like, having any type of struggle with it, it just doesn't click into my head. But then again, now you're factoring in other types of engines like turbo props, turbo fans, turbo jets, Cessnas versus freaking hovercraft or UAVs and stuff like that. Like the little quadcopter things, you know what I mean? Like, what? or like you said earlier, like pitch blade, pitch angle, N1 versus N2, and all these other craziness,
Mm-hmm.
So what was like your biggest takeaways from the power plants section?
So as dumb as this is, I had to put this on my lessons learned, and it was kind of like I can't believe I wrote this. Know your engines. Parentheses, kind of the point here. Reciprocating. I was like, I can't believe I wrote that, but I did because it was like there was a valid point behind it. Reciprocating and turbo prop and fan dominant. That was something that really peaked in my head. I was like, there was a ton of things about turbo fan and turbo prop for some reason. I had probably over 30 questions on just those two types of alone. Know the systems inside them and how they work. There's a lot of value with that. Compressor and turbo system questions were kind of funky. 'Cause you got so many different compressors in different types of engines. It's like, okay, cool. We got the hot section here. You got the compressor section. All right, you got this. All right, so what's going to be what's the hottest point of the whole engine? And you're like, probably where the burning is. Like, you kind of. It's a weird trick question, but in reality, the hottest one is the last compressor in the hot section. You get into that last one, that's the hottest point because it's got the big power of the suck, squeeze, bang, blow. So, it's like, okay, cool. Once you learn that one, you're feeling a little bit more confident about that. So know your internals. Yeah, that'll help out a ton. Props, the feathering system. Man, that was cool to learn about. I didn't think I'd like it. I thought it was going to piss me off, but I actually really enjoyed that. So the feathering system with the fixed and variable pitch, pretty good. Terminology in regards to the geometry, forces, and speed, and how they work would be good. At least have a grasp on it. They start talking about, in force, how's the prop, when the prop's in motion, where is it going to be longitudinally in this axis? And you're like, I don't know what kind of force that is. Hold on, let me think about it. Okay, it's going to be throwing this way. The most force is going to be here. Okay, cool, I got that. So, but I didn't have a ton on that. I just got a general overview, and that really helped me. But as far as the whole thing, it felt very close to what I had from Dauntless and ASA, which was nice. I'd say about a third of it were more than half of it was reworded. I will definitely say that. Then a few of them were twisted in a kind of a funky way, but it kept you still in the same box. It almost felt like they wanted you to pass this one, and they knew that it's the hard one. So it wasn't bad. But it was, again, I actually really enjoyed Powerplant because I'm a Powerplant guy, and it was fun to learn about different engines. Very, very true.
And I think that's kind of like their little give me, because like, well, we kind of burned you up with the general, and then maybe the airframes, because how many people nowadays actually do any sort of metal work? I think metalworking is probably like a very low priority for a good chunk of skilled labor. You know what I mean? I think now everything's going to composites now, so I mean that might have been the reasoning behind the power plant stuff being as air quotes easy. I would say easy, but not really.
Well, and this is what throws me. We were talking about this, and I'm beefy. I don't know if you wanted to jump in before I talk about the stats, but what were your thoughts on when you did power plant?
We at my school we did a lot of piston engines.
Yeah, those things, dude, that hurts.
Yeah, but I had some understanding of how piston engines worked and everything just from goofing around growing up, But then we basically had to break it all down. You learn the guts to it, mic and everything out, The most interesting part of that was the use of your measuring equipment, micrometers, dial calipers, everything.
Oh yeah.
Those V blocks and your rotating push rods on to see how out around they are. all those kind of things. And let me tell you, everything was a blown out mess, but it would run well enough on a stand. So you had to break it all apart, measure things out. Yeah, they're definitely out of tolerance. Then you filled out the engine logbook, put it on the stand, strapped a prop to it that had majority of the blades cut down short, and then you ran it. And they smoked like crazy, but they ran. And a lot of the turbine stuff, was just Gen Fam. Here's one sitting on a stand that's missing half the stuff because they pulled it from a junkyard. But here's it is. Look at it. Pull off the N1, inspect things, reinstall it, swap an EGT probe here and there, all that kind of stuff. But engines were my favorite, just because I think for most people, it's power, right? Mm-hmm. It's power. That's true power. That's the, I guess, what every younger person's probably into, at least at the ages where most of us are going through the school, or at least when I went through the school.
Right. That Mo power, baby.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, man. And plus, that's what makes the whole thing go, right? Like you kind of care next to little about what keeps the aircraft together, and more so what gives it the oomph to make it do what it does, right? Especially when you're talking about big boy stuff like commercial airliners with those engines, or fast boys like the fighter jets and stuff like that. Like that's the stuff that really interests you, because that's the oomph you feel when they actually get to do what they do. They don't care so much about why the stick does the thing it does, or why the canopy blows out when you pull this lever, or how the aircraft gets power. You know what I mean? Like that's like root second stuff, like non-relevant. But I want to know what makes this thing go, and I think that's what separates us, really. And I don't know what I think today's generations are more so on the avionics side of the house, you know what I mean? And at least that's what a lot of the trending learning is going towards, I would say.
Yeah, all software development, because it's mostly glass cockpits now. I mean, think about how many glass cockpits we saw in those helos at that convention.
Yeah. Oh God, dude, you guys talked about that. Listening to those episodes, I was like, oh no, not more glass. Please, God, not more AVI. Yeah. Nothing good's gonna come from more electrical.
I mean, there was one, which was that Helo, what was it called? They were from England. They were only there on the last day. And I mean, you call it a Tesla. I call it a Tesla of the sky or whatever. It was 2 40-inch monitors in front of the pilot and co-pilot seat, and nothing else.
Yeah, that was cool.
It was real sleek and it was real cool looking, but I couldn't help but thinking, like, what's the default here if the screen goes out?
Yeah. They just have like a marker and they trace it on the freaking windscreen, that's your fallback.
Is it auto rotate to the nearest open field? Is that what we're doing, or is it just all VFR at that point?
Right, right. So you mentioned stuff about stats. Like, call me a nerd, man. I love reading stats. maybe it's from all those times I used to watch sports. You know what I mean? But so let's hear some feedback about what you were meant about the tests.
Again, in full disclosure, this was after I failed my test, where I wanted to go look at stats and realize how dumb I was. Just because I was really mad at myself, and I'm very much a Silas. Thank you to now Colonel, our old CO. He nicknamed me that, and it stuck forever in my head. But anyway, so for 2022 and 2023, I wanted to pull up the stats to see what people were doing on these tests, and this is kind of what I came up with. This is directly from the FAA. So in 2022, Airman Knowledge Test stats were as such. Airframe, 11,000 people took the test. Pass rate was 74.8%. Average score 75.8. General, 13,500 took the test. 74.8% pass rate. 75% was the average score. Powerplant, and this is the one that really threw me the curveball. 11,600 testers. Pass rate 67.1%.
Jesus.
Wow.
That's what the hell. That's a huge drop in percentages right there.
Yeah.
So bump it up to 2023. Airframes, 1,000 more people tested. pass rate was 74.5%. It went down to 0.3. Whatever. Call that weather.
Mm-hmm.
General went up 15,000 testers, almost 16,000. Pass rate was 72.4%. All right, a 0.4, a lot more people testing, kind of strange. Average score went down to a 74.78%. Power plant, 12,864 testers, pass rate 67.3%, average score 73.8. So the power plant is by far, by the paper, the hardest one to pass.
Really
interesting.
But that's the one where they give you the give me, where it kind of almost it mirrors the study guides a lot more.
But I think it goes, and my brain went back to this. I really felt like the power plant one was more difficult if you were a single focus mechanic. Ooh. So if, like from us coming from the rotary wing, you got that turbo shaft, your brain only sees the shaft that runs through that engine. You got a small compressor that's going to run back into the hot section. It's going to turn the front end of the A box, and it's going to turn the C box to turn the main drive shaft. That's all you're seeing. But then you start looking at a propeller system, and it's like, okay, it's almost the same, but your shaft is turning a propeller. You have to be able to change gears and like, okay, I've got a bigger compressor. I have two different stages of compression now. It's not just axial and centrifugal. Okay, now what does this do? Where's the hot point? All right, what's the exhaust? Throw one more in there, and this is where I didn't talk about this earlier, but this is where I started really getting like, well, what the hell? When we started talking about pressure differentials. So when the hot gases come out on that turbo on that prop or the thrust, okay, you've got pressure and you got temperature. Okay, now if you're in the cone, where's the pressure at the highest in the cone? And it's like, well, why does that matter? Well, it does if you're in an afterburner situation or not in an afterburner, because once it goes out of the cone, now you're going into Bernoulli's principle. Mm-hmm. And if you don't understand Bernoulli's, that's where you're going to find a couple of like, ooh, damn, where do I go from here? So all those pieces, there were more facets in that besides just the engine that we didn't talk about that are important to know, that are in the pub that say, hey, what is this? Because you got to understand it, because it all flows with that theory of the operation, not to mention where bleed air comes from. What does the bleed air do? Is this for air conditioning? Is that going to run through to cool the engine? And how the airflow makes such a difference on the outside of the can versus the inside. Like, it blew my mind to know that the majority of air that goes around that engine isn't burned. It's used for cooling.
I remember that for the first time too. I went through, they were like, yeah, 25% of the air that's going through this big inlet is used to burn. Everything else is cooling aspect. And I was like, no way, it burns at all. And they're like, no, that's a turbojet.
Yep.
Turbo fans
totally like, what? Yeah. What do you mean there's only using that little air? What the hell? Yeah, that was a light bulb moment of just, you're messing with me, man. There's no way. And the tolerance. Holy crap. The sheer minor amount of room available on some of these rotating components in that compressor. Mm-hmm. And if the temperatures aren't maintained with that outside air temperature running over that can versus what's in that burner, you're going to get galling. You're going to be in a bad day.
Yeah, I remember doing vibe checks on those kind of things as they're rotating, and you're out there under a running engine, and you got a little sensor up in there, and you're reading the box underneath and trying to figure out where your out of balance is. Yeah, all of those things. And then prop vibes too. Those are a lot of schools and don't go through those kind of things. You don't really learn that till you get to the field. But prop vibes can either be a kind of a quick thing, or you're there for 6 hours.
That sounds a lot like the main rotor vibes for us. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It can be a quick fix depending on if you rigged it right or you set your nominals correct. But like the age of the plane versus the age of the blades versus the whatever, all these stupid factors, and it throws it off forever. Like, you can be chasing this thing for hours, days even, and it's it's definitely one of those things that they don't really mention too much of. So like now that you mentioned it, right, like all these different factors in, like I could see why the power plants test being the most how do you say, the most congruent to the study guides is the one where people fail the most. And you brought it up very perfectly. Like if you're used to only working on a single engine, all these other ones are going to make zero sense. And it did for me as well. I can full on admit that. Like for my time in the service when I did turbo shafts, as did Brian, the next plane that I touched based on was a turbo prop. Go figures, like 3 different props. What the hell is this? Like the engine itself made like this backwards S pattern thing. I'm like, what is going on here? Like,
so it flipped upside down and backwards.
Yeah, so it threw me off. I'm like, so it comes in here, goes into like this stupid crazy 8 thing, and then it shoots out in the same direction where the prop is turning. That doesn't sound smart at all. Yep. And then you have the ones where the prop is in the front versus where the prop's in the back, or the prop's on the wing. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, tractor or a pusher.
Yeah.
Oh. And then the whole, and this is so stupid. Don't laugh too hard at me. But like the major airlines, the big old engines and the first set of fan blades, I used to be like, oh, all that does is just intake. And the guy that was in my class, he was from Canada. Totally love this dude. He'd been working on jets for years. He goes, no, dumbass, that produces thrust. I'm like, what? How the hell does that thing produce thrust? It's sucking air, man. And he kind of looked, he cocked his head at me very neatly. And was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. I mean, the suck, squeeze, bang, blow. The hot stuff comes out the back. That gives thrust. He goes, what do you think those big old fan blades do in the front, dummy? I was like, oh, yeah, they move air. He's like, yeah, how about that?
It's like a double action, right? Like it sucks air and it pushes.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, I'm a dumbass. But the cool thing is in the study guide and the DSA and Dauntless, it really breaks all this stuff down. You know, we're going. Obviously, I didn't talk much about it because it's in the study guide, and it breaks all this stuff down in the engines, and it really shows you how they work, what they do for reciprocating, all of them, and it's really good for that. And it really breaks into like valves. And I was very surprised it started talking about the MVP. You'll laugh about this one, I'm sure. The grinding of people taking the pistons out, grinding them down to give that edge, to give a couple more horsepower out of it. And they're like, yeah, by the way, when you do that, that's bad. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And they called it out.
Well, years ago in a deployed setting, we had an engine that was getting near end of life. And we decided, it was going through its last major, tear it apart, clean it up, flap valves, all this kind of thing, put it back together, and then it'll finish out its next few hundred hours, and then it'll be done going to the scrap yard. So we did a little port and polish on it. Let me tell you, that airframe, the air crew come out and they're like, God damn, that thing climbed like a motherfucker, man. What did you guys do? Like, oh, we just did a really good overhaul on that one. It was that old port and polish. And then that thing got back home, and the engine shop opened it up, to take some stuff out of it, and they reported like somebody tampered with the engine. They weren't supposed to. And we're all over in the war zone, and they're like, "Who did it?" And we're like, "Come find us. Come get us. Nobody's ratting everybody. Nobody's ratting anybody out. Come get us."
So funny, dude. I could not believe that was called out in the test. It was specifically all about that. And I was like, who would grind it? No, hold on. Well, if you grind it, what does that do? Oh, that's cool.
Bet.
But see, that's why, why it was called out, is because there's a lot of home built people that are doing that stuff. Because you got guys that, they're mechanically inclined. I've told Six about the guy I used to work with, how he got his AMP. It was because, he called out an inspector and he said, everything looks good. Let me see your license. He goes, license for what? To do the work on your plane. He goes, here's my pilot's license. And they're like, that's not good enough. But he was one of those guys that knew how to do those things, and he would mod his engines like that. So I think that's probably why it's in there, is because they found in the probably the home built the experimental realm that a lot of experimental things are happening.
Yeah, I can
sure
see that.
They were. Well, why has it got hot spots? Why is this thing friggin' backfiring so damn? What'd you do to this?
And who put the Folgers can exhaust on it? What's happening here?
It works.
Don't worry about that, little guy.
Once around the pattern, you'll be all right.
Right. So after all the written tests were good and done, how difficult was the practical and oral examinations?
Dude, I thought it was the way they do it now. With if you've missed questions, and this, I mean this in the best way, please, for the love of God, miss at least 10 questions on your friggin' written. Don't try to ace it, because if you do ace it, guess what? You don't know what questions are coming to you on your oral. It can come from anywhere because you're not going to have a code to study. So missing questions on the written is good. You'll know what you have coming. So in doing that, that helped me know, okay, where did I screw up? And it forced me to brush up on that knowledge. To when I had the question with the DME, I was able to fire them off. I think I only got one wrong on my orals, and that was just because I was stupid. He answered, and I'm like, oh my God, I knew that. And he goes, yeah, you were close, but you totally bombed it. So good job. Great dude, really was. Our DME was phenomenal. So yeah, definitely miss questions on your written. It's worth it for that lump part alone. But it forces you, like I said, to go back and study the section so you can understand where you got it wrong, and you can spit it back because you've gained the knowledge. So that's good. Oral to me was easy. I really wasn't worried about the oral. Practical was good with where I went to school. I'm very, very happy with AeroPro out of Alabama. They were great. They have their own location for all the stuff, and the DM, they have all the things that I was going to have to do my practical on. So I had already been able to put my hands on it, understand the systems, know where they are. I could study them. When I knew what pistons, I'm like, okay, this piston's jacked. How am I going to inspect it? The cool thing is the pub's right there. And then when the DME comes, you're going to know your task. He's going to give you the pub, and he's like, all right, this is what I want done. All you got to do is follow the damn pub. That's all you got to do. Just follow the manual and you'll pass. You'll have 2 to 3 questions that are open book per practical as well. For you nowadays, Control F. There you go. You're going to find the answer. There was only one that him and I were actually both stumped on, and it was a fuel question. And I was like, hang on, this isn't coming up. And he pulled up in his pub. He's like, oh, you're right. It's not. All right, let's find it. And I was like, all right, cool. It was a race to find it. And I happened to put in a keyword that somehow I found it. And I was like, oh, hey, it's right here. And I answered. He goes, yep, that's what it says here in the FAA. Good stuff. So that was great. So not an issue, in my opinion, with the oral and practical. If you have an area that you're able to do a little bit of the practice on, if you don't have that, I would recommend getting with whatever DME that you do plan on testing with when you contact them, because you're going to need to contact them, set up your appointment, know what the value you have to pay is, and you will have to pay in cash. Do not forget that. It will be a cash payment. God, I need to be a DM. That was
because we totally forgot.
Yeah. Oh boy. But if you contact the DME, they'll tell you where they test, how they test. A lot of times you can go to their location if they're willing and walk the shop, so you kind of have an idea of what they have. Because it is going to run also off of your written test that will actually plot in a few of your practicals as well. So I missed an airframe question, and it was about a patch. And I had a patch job on my practical, and I'll admit it, I did the shady thing. I said, hey, how many practicals do I have? And he gave me my practicals. I was like, if I don't do this, am I going to fail? And he's like, as long as you pass the others. I'm like, I'll take a fail on that one. Thank you. Let's move on, please. Dude, I didn't want to spend 4 hours making a friggin' flush patch. I'm not an airframer, man. I don't want to do that. Right. So he kind of smiled. He's like, you made the right choice. I was like, cool. We're good. All right, let's get through this. So I finished my ONPs in about 5.5, 6 hours. And that's not too bad. I thought I did pretty good. I was in and out and done, and signed and happy.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Man. Hell yeah. So for the OMPs with the DME, the prices, they vary by DME and location.
Huge differences. God, dude. Orlando was $2,000. I looked to go to Orlando because my mom's down there, and I was like, I'll just stay with my mom. I called one DM. He's like, yeah, it'll be 2,000. I'm like, no, thank you.
Like to dollars?
Yeah. I don't have an OnlyFans, bro. Like, I don't know where you're getting $2,000 from, but I can't just poop that one out. No. Now, Mom, thankfully ours, well, how much was he? He was 1,000. And then that was pretty much the going rate in Pensacola. So it was like, all right. And they all seem to have right around the same. It just depends on what equipment and where and how.
And they provide the equipment and the tools, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Everything is provided by them. They, per the FAA rules, which this was a fun one to go down, the DMEs, if you want to be a DME, you have to have a certain number of testing equipment available to you to be able to be a DME, and you actually have to have it certified. So a lot of DMEs, from what I'm seeing, are connected to certain locations to be able to do that. So they have all the stuff on hand.
Makes sense. Makes all the sense. And the only reason why I'm asking is because I'm playing the devil's advocate here. There's people out here who've asked, like, hey, like, how do I take the test? Do I just go to a school? Do I does a prep school do it all for me? I'm like, yes, to a point, you know? And especially for military folks, because they say, oh, I'll just use my education benefits and pound out this license. I'm like, yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no.
I mean, dude, think about before we were getting out. I mean, and had we not been where we are now, I can't imagine me right before getting out of the Marine Corps trying to do this A&P with the mentality that I had walking out. I would have failed miserably. I would have punched myself in the face. I've avoided this for years. I've avoided the A&P for a long time, mainly because of actual fear of this point of testing, because I didn't have the other knowledge of the other things outside of H1s. You know, I was like, oh, I just got to work on helicopters. That's it. Why do I need a test? I don't need to prove my worth. I work on these. And that would have just, I would have failed so badly.
Mm-hmm. And that was the same with us. Like when I went from rotary wing to fixed wing stuff, like, I don't need to know. It's like similar concept, you know, suck, squeeze, bang, blow. Thing turns props on the ass end or on the front end instead of on the head. We're good. And then all these other wickets come in, especially if you're going to these newer, air quotes, newer aged aircraft where a lot of this stuff is avionics driven instead of like valves and springs and whatnot, like stuff you have to rig. Now it's all just software, just like plug in a thumb drive, enter a couple codes, and it's good to go. I'm like, what just happened, right? So especially with like a lot of these glass cockpits or fly by wire, like avionics dominates so much of these airframes. So like the mentality that I had coming out, it was like, I don't know, like 1980s, 1970s type technology where we're still doing springs and pneumatic accumulator canisters and stuff like that, you know. So going into these newer ones, if I had gone for an A&P exam after all that, I would have, just like you, I would have failed terribly. You know what I mean? Because I mean, all I knew was a turbo shaft engine and maybe 2 variants of it at that. So and then coming, and then
I disagree with that. So 3 guys that I went to A&P school with had just all gotten out of the Marines. One was a Cobra crew chief, one was a Huey crew chief, and the other one was a combat engineer. He was an explosive expert. Like, guy could make explosives out of anything. It was amazing. It's amazing to witness. And he was really good once he got drunk, and he would go and turn into like Bill Nye doing science stuff, like all half cocked. And he would make like little mini bombs in his kitchen. You're like, oh my God. You know, I still remind him about it to this day. I'm like, remember that time you were telling me all half drunk that you could build a bomb that would level this corner of the block, but you decided to make a smaller version so you could show me in your kitchen. And you put it in a bucket and essentially blew out the 5-gallon bucket. It was really impressive with this. Where I'm going with this is those guys were still wound up pretty tight at that point in their lives, and they couldn't deal with they were struggling to deal with the gross and disgusting civilians. and especially, the teenagers just got out of high school and went there. So those guys were always calling out of school, and they were the top 3 scorers in the whole class.
Nice.
Yeah, they called out and missed more than anybody. One had 0 aviation experience, and he was the 3rd highest. So I think you guys would have done just fine right out, coming fresh off of active duty.
Yeah, I appreciate
just
that.
Based on what those guys' experiences, my experiences with those guys, they were intelligent and they knew it, and they could come in, get what they needed to within a couple of hours, and then they were gone, and then come back to test, and then so the schools are always mad at them because like, your attendance records, you're driving our numbers down. And they're like, and what's our test look like? And they're like, well, you guys are always doing really good. Cool. See you at the next test. And that's how they work.
Nice.
That's how they work. So I think you guys would have done well.
I appreciate that, man.
I'm just more negative on myself, man. I gotta have my negative self-worth. That way, when I pass, I'm like, hey, I'm not a failure. Yeah, look at me now, Mom.
Well, they had their negative self-worth, and I was talking to them about it a little bit, and I was like, you guys can't be that way. And they're like, yeah, you know what, you're right. And then they turn their aggression towards the people in class that they hated, which was just glorious to watch unfold on a nearly daily basis. It was magical.
I don't know if you had this when you guys were doing your studying. For some ungodly reason, I can't remember the name of the movie where the guy took the pill and his brain opened up to like a whole new
Limitless.
level. Yes. For some ungodly reason, dude, while I was going through that pub, I felt like my brain was opening and retaining more as I was going, which I've never felt before. And granted, I wasn't rolling on MDMA or anything like that. That would have been cool.
I think that's that euphoric experience your brain gets right before it thinks you're about to die. It's like, hey, we're about to die. Let's go at full capacity here.
Probably what it was. It feels about right. But yeah, for some reason, the knowledge pieces were just really flowing at that thing. And if you really just study this, because like I said, I only studied this stuff for 3 or 4 months. I've been at aviation. You guys heard in the other episodes, I was an RV mechanic, which oddly enough really helped me on the FAA test, which is weird, but it really helped me on the electrical side for sure. But all the studying, if you dedicate yourself to it and if you say, look, I'm going to do this, and you're going to put yourself in that positive mental state of, I'm going to pass this, I'm going to do these steps to make sure I get there, and you're going to drive that bus, you're going to be successful. You really will. And if you just keep remembering, hey, this is just this piece to move on to the next one, to learn more. I'm showing that I can do this. I have the general bottom of the base knowledge per the FAA that I can do this, and I'm going to learn everything when I get to my type model series, and my shop's going to teach me the next thing. I'm just proving that I can, and you keep growing with that, then you're going to be great. Always seek out other opportunities to continue to grow. Like, I'm going to go up probably to my local airfield here, and I'm going to try to learn on a couple pipers so I can do general, I still want to be able to do 100-hour inspections. I want to learn about these ones just because I'm weird, but I want to learn more pieces to this because there's so many facets of our career field outside of that type model series that you work on every day, Monday through Friday. There's so many cool pieces that you can learn. And if you want to, move into the other ones, NDI, I mean, crap, you guys have seen it in the rules to get an NDI. Oh my God, that's a whole nother freaking can of crazy on different levels. There's just so many cool pieces that we have in aviation that we can learn and test on and grow if we're willing to walk outside of that. And granted, it means more hours, but walking outside those pieces to learn new ones, maybe you're going to find another niche that might be really fun.
That is very well said. And you're absolutely right. Especially when, like just stepping out of your bubble. And I feel like we've inadvertently created this theme throughout the episodes. Like, it's about stepping out of your bubble, whether it be wanting to take this aviation journey and become proficient at it, or just you already have aviation experience, but you want to broaden your horizon. And in order to do that, you kind of have to let go a little bit of what you've cling to or what you're familiar with. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's kind of like what we've been saying throughout the entire series of our existence is like, in order for you to progress and improve, you kind of have to let go of the stuff that you've been used to doing, the appealing to tradition, as we've been saying, like this is how we've always done it mentality. It doesn't work. it never has worked. and why we still cling to that for security reasons, I have no clue. But very damn well said. I don't know if there's anything else you can tap on that, but that was good. I like that a lot.
Thanks, man. I'm glad I could help. And I really hope if any of you really, have been on the fence about this, take the leap. It's worth it. You're not to mention for professional growth, but also, personal. If you're going to stay in this game, the way that the cards are falling more, in my opinion, it's sounding funky, but the AMP, though it's already been a one-time requirement, there's weird rumors from, the circles, because we all know we love the T. There's been rumors floating around that the FAA is going to start making us type model series specific. Your your power plant is good for 777. Oh, cool. You want to go learn on 737? Yeah. No problem. You need to learn this now. Now you have to go back and you're going to get individually rated. Moving forward, previous AMPs, I think, will be grandfathered with clauses, but it's getting to that point where they are going to start hammering down on us.
I think they're trying to blend it with the EASA, the European way, because that's how it is over in Europe.
I was about to say that too. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think other places that already started to play that game too. Like I want to say Canada is doing it now, and maybe Australia.
I think what they want to do in some of the readings that I've and discussions I've had is at some point, whether you're US, Canada, or Europe, you're kind of all, it's one big aerospace maintenance, license. Essentially, you're good to touch anything from those realms. I think that's what they're trying to do.
And to be fair, that's actually a good thing. You know what I mean? Because we've had a guest on some time ago where he talked about US FAA rated mechanics working on EASA rated aircraft. You know what I mean? Like they, instead of just having like these predetermined agreements or whatever the hell, or these delegation authorities to say they can, they just like, I'm licensed to work on it. What's the problem? You know what I mean? And I honestly think that's actually a good thing. And I've seen similar things when it comes to like when we're talking quality management systems where there's just one international standard. Everybody knows it. If you're certified to it, we all know what that means. You know what I mean? So I think it sounds like a pain in the ass, but in the long run, it actually makes a ton of sense. So that'd be
you'll become definitely more specialized in your. You'll be, since you're type rated, you will be a legit SME instead of, I only touch a Pratt & Whitney 306 Charlie once every 6 months. It'll be I know that thing inside and out, so I'll be able to hear what's wrong with it as it's taxiing or flying overhead,
Dude, those guys are nuts. Oh yeah, that's the number 4 bearing. What the hell, dude? What? You can't hear it? Well, I guess I can now. I'm never going to forget that. But damn, dude, really?
Yeah.
This SME thing is huge. And we've lost that. I mean, I love that in being in the military. You had one type model series you worked on. 6, that IP shaft, pterodactyl, IP shaft's blown. You knew what it was. You come to these other aircraft, and if you spend that time, you're going to get so intimate with that. You're putting a bolt in, like, hold on, bro, just give me a second. How do you know where it is? The fingers know.
Right. My fingers have eyes,
I've never actually seen this mount hole where this bolt goes. I've only ever felt it.
Right.
And that's huge. It's a great win for that, because the companies are saving money on that one for turnover. You're going to be able to pay attention to it. I mean, we got these new ones, these new aircraft, they're going to be around for 10, 15 years. And hey, look, this is going away. Oh, okay. It's no different than pilots. Hey, I'm rated on a 777. Well, can you fly this? Well, yeah, if I go to school. It's kind of going to flow that same way for us, I feel.
Right. Yeah. And I wonder if this is going to be the gateway to stop calling us AMP techs and start calling us aircraft maintenance engineers. You know what I mean? Kind of like everyone else in the damn world does,
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe Europe, we're calling engineers.
Yep. Same with Canada, and I think Australia does too. It's like, hey, maybe this is the gate opener right here.
Yeah. Well, this is where it changed all back in the Reagan time frame when we were classified as a non-specialized trade.
Right.
Oh, I remember you talking about that.
Yeah. So
if we're engineers, can we get paid like them?
Yes.
Please?
So that's it. That's right. That's how we become specialized, is to get paid as such. I think the reason we're non-specialized is why the pay bands are seemingly pretty low. Actually, just looking on my school's website, it was saying the average salary for a A&P was rounding up $71,000 a year.
It's ridiculous.
Jeez.
Yeah, and you're like, who can survive? Who's going to buy a $500,000 to $1 million home on that?
Right.
And spend $400 for 2 bags of groceries. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Hey, what did that C-suite guy make last year? Oh, 300 million. Cool story, bro. Hey, can you come help me play? I need to R&R this starter. Oh, right. You can't. Oh, that sucks. I'll just sit here for my $19.95 an hour after all these years. Yeah, I'm changing jobs.
Yeah, for real.
Right. And so hopefully with this going that type model certified specialized route, hopefully that'll make us become engineers.
Right.
And paid as such.
I'm really hoping for that.
Look at this circle we've made. So many great things.
Right? That's one thing I love about this, man. Like, we go on these big tangents. We have like huge branching. And then somehow the world tree comes back around. We went up and we're somehow back at the roots. Like, how did we get here? I love it. Any final thoughts? Anybody? MVP, got anything to kind of round off everything?
Appreciate you coming on, Brian. Thanks for imparting all of your knowledge and wisdom on us. Looking forward to diving more into 8083 myself, just to I guess get smart on it for my own edification.
You're gonna have fun with that.
Yeah, fun, a headache, tumor. I don't know. So it'll be something for sure.
It's still the CFRs are the ones that make me just go, oh my God, why?
Well, it's because they're all written in legal speak. That's the travesty in and of itself.
Yes.
Everything's written in legal speak. So you have to decipher through the lawyer bullshit to get to what you want out of it.
Yep. Right. Or some of them go in like this weird loop, you know what I mean? Like, especially like with how the document stuff and what's the bare minimum to what happens if X, Y, and Z happen. Like, timeout, what? Right? That's a terrible example, but I mean, it's like a lot of these CFR clauses, they kind of go in this weird loop around, kind of sort of like us, but in a less fun way.
Yeah, they say it's preferred, but not required to X, Y, Z. However, if you're caught not using the preferred method, there could lie penalties. Well, then just say that's the way it has to be done. Damn it! You know?
Yes.
Just, like, why with all the bullshit?
Not asking much here. Oh, hold on. Is this in the 25? Well, no, go over to the 91. Well, the 25 says something a little different than the 91. Well, wait, are you in the 43? Why the hell do we got to be in the 43 now? What the hell? Where are you going with this?
You know that meme with the dude from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but I think it was from one of the Pacific Rim movies where he's like got the board up there with the red string tied to everything, and he looks all crazy. That's how it looks like trying to go through the CFRs.
Yes.
God, yes. Oh, so true.
So true. Brian, any final thoughts on anything?
Hey, I appreciate it. Listeners, thanks for tolerating me for, I think this is my 3rd episode. Thanks for tolerating me for the 3rd time here, going from fisherman to RV tech to, hey, yeah, I'm a part of you. One of us. One of us.
Yeah, see the impact you had on them, everybody?
Yeah. You guys brought me back to the dark side.
That's right.
Sons of bitches. Promise me cookies, and I better get them.
Good.
But do it. I mean, seriously, if you've been on the fence, it's worth it. Like I said, I've avoided it. 20 years in military aviation, I avoided it my entire career, and I just got it done now. I mean, I'm 43. I got a long career ahead of me, and I was like, screw it. I'm just going to do this. I'm glad I did it. It's worth it, and I'm going to see where the next quals take me, wherever that may be, and just have fun with it, learn, and just continue to grow, and let that hate, discontent boil in you to make you better.
Most definitely. And Brian, appreciate you coming again. If you guys want to let off some of that hate and discontent, you can totally learn how to do so fishing, surf fishing, that is, and you can learn the good tips and tricks on how to surf fish, where to do it, what sort of stuff you should rig it with. On Brian's side of the house, we have the Finding Demo Surf Fishing podcast. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I thought I didn't know a whole lot about planes, but I knew even less about fishing. And just some of the stuff that he's mentioned, like, this makes no sense. But then once you actually like see it in action, like, oh, okay, I get it. It's one of those oh no shit moments, right? Definitely check out his podcast out. We share it all the time on our side of the house on social medias. Real easy to find. I mean, it's like the only podcast, or probably one of 4 surf fishing podcasts there
something
is.
Like that. Something small.
Something like that. So yeah, Finding Demo, surf fishing. It's on it. That name is pretty much everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music. It's all the same. We're congruent like that. But hey, what do you guys think? Like, what sort of challenges have you faced when taking your A&P exams? Have you had any students or recent A&P students or otherwise who have said like, hey, this is different, this is what's new, this is whatever information that you guys have, so we can have feedback on and we can push it out for everyone else? Because ultimately, let's be real, A&Ps are a very finite source, and day by day we're losing more of them because of age, because of limitations, because of whatever else. So passing on what we learned so we can actually continue the interest and continue the proficiency of these future mechanics, or these future, hopefully soon to be engineers, to keep these planes safe, keep these planes flying, get everyone where they need to go, and get where they go on time at cost. Let us know in the comments. Let us know on our social medias, our emails, our website, whatever is easiest for you. The absolute best way to get a hold of us and have conversations like this is through our Discord channel via our Patreon. We have all sorts of conversations like this with Brian, with our patrons. Just blows our mind every single time. And then anything else, it's damn good memes and tabletop references like Warhammer. So, on that note, hey, we appreciate you all for listening, and we'll see you all on the next one. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
We would like to take this time to thank our patrons for supporting our show and allowing us to make episodes, maintain our gear, and create merch for all of our listeners. With special thanks to Erica Lamont, Chris Hawkins, Eric Shaw, Dan Schubert, Ryan Frushauer, Kyle Keir, Mike Sherwood, Caleb Stockhill, and Jennifer Brofer. Thank you all so much for your support and patronage. If you like our show, please support us on Patreon. You'll receive awesome perks like access to our private Discord, discounts and early access to our merch, first glimpse of our comics and other projects, and so much more. You can further support us and show off your prowess as an aircraft specialist by visiting our shop at cancelformaintenance.com. If you like classy or rugged watches, visit our affiliate Rockwell Time at rockwelltime.com. Use the code CX, the number 4MX to save 10% off your total order. If you have suggestions for the show, or you'd like to be a guest on the show, send us a line on our contact us section at cancelformaintenance.com, and we'll do what we can to get both your ideas and yourself on the show. Please support us on social media like Facebook at Cancel for Maintenance, Instagram at CANX for Maintenance Podcast, or Twitter at CXMX Podcast. Please check out our new comic series on the Tapas app. Like, share, subscribe, and comment on our comics. Let us know what you think. Thank you all so much for your support and listenership, and we will catch you all next time.